date because one of Trump's co-defendants did file to have a speedy trial here. Trump's lawyers filed saying they oppose this, and they say that they want to separate Trump from any such requests in the future. Trump also made a shakeup with his lawyer team today, replacing his lead attorney with an attorney here in Atlanta.
All right, so tell us more about Trump's surrender. What else are you expecting to see?
So the former president says he'll be here around 7:30 p.m. We expect it to be rather quick in and out, just like all of the other co-defendants, because Trump does have that consent bond agreement already in place. His cash bail is set at $200,000. This is the first time the former president will have to make a cash bail payment in any of these indictments. As for mugshots and fingerprints, the sheriff has continuously said that Trump will be treated just like any other co-defendant. However, we will have to wait and see how this plays out with regards to the process inside the jailhouse, because Trump is different than other co-defendants. He does have Secret Service protection. So we're just here standing by waiting for 7:30 when Trump says he will arrive here at the jail. Steph?
Thanks for that update, Melina. And we'll have live coverage of former President Trump surrendering at the Fulton County Jail in Georgia. That's on NTD's Capitol Report with Steve Lance right after our show tonight at 7 p.m.
And I think, the other point of view is the more Make America Great Again, America First point of view that really has been led by Donald Trump since he really burst upon the scene. So Vivek is really sort of now echoing what Trump probably would have said in the debate, that, wait, we've done too much with Ukraine, got to stop all this funding. Maybe we need to look again at putting troops at our border and focusing on our problems here. Now, he's walked away a little bit from the stance about Israel because he's, of course, a top ally of the U.S., and I think he has now backed away from those comments that we need to cut off aid to Israel.
And going on to former President Trump, of course, he came up. And how do you think the candidates' views on his role within the party could impact their campaigns?
It's obvious that they're still trying to walk their way through it. It looked to me, again, like most of them were trying to be supportive of President Trump's, most of his policies without being supportive of his current situation. It looks like of the 8 of them on the stage, most of them said that they would actually still endorse President Trump, even if he was convicted as the nominee. But once again, Vivek was the one who really led the way, put his hand up first, and then the others sort of followed. So I think President Trump loomed large. I think he was another one of the winners in the debate because a lot of people in the crowd were supportive of him. They got on Chris Christie and booed him because he was very anti-Trump. So was Asa Hutchinson. So the crowd seemed to be on President Trump's side, and it looked like to me the number one candidate in the debate, Vivek, was on President Trump's side too.
And Trump's interview has been watched at least 220 million times already. Yeah, it's an incredible number. What does that indicate to you about support for him as he heads into Fulton County Jail today?
I just think it's amazing. What a stroke of genius to counter-program against the debate by doing that. Obviously, the viewership on that was much higher than the debate, and it was some interesting topics that they discussed. Very interesting that I had not heard him really discuss before. So it shows his brilliance as someone that knows the American people and knows how to get attention and knows how to get his supporters fired up. And I think this is a good way for him to go into this very difficult situation today, knowing that he's got the support of a large number of Americans who are going to be with him as he has to go through this difficult process. 4th time in a few months. It's really unprecedented and unbelievable that he has to go through all this.
Jeff Clare, political analyst and the host of Ringside Politics. Thank you so much. Great to hear your thoughts.
Thank you.
Before the indictment was announced, the forewoman of the special grand jury went on a media tour bragging about her excitement to potentially subpoena Trump and swear him in. The Fulton County Court clerk released the indictment before the grand jury voted on it. Jordan says in the letter that he isn't surprised that people believe the prosecution is designed to interfere with the 2024 election. Willis requested a March 4, 2024 trial date, which he says is the day before the Super Tuesday presidential primary. It's also 8 days before the Georgia presidential primary. What are the federal interests involved? Jordan lists several, including using state criminal law to regulate the actions of federal officers carrying out official duties, charging a former U.S. president, and whether she consulted with DOJ Special Counsel Jack Smith. To get answers to these concerns, Jordan requested all documents and communications related to her investigation, including communications with the DOJ, Smith, and other federal executive branch officials. Trump's former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and former Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark have both filed motions to have the case removed to a federal court. They also wanted the federal judge to block their state arrests, but the judge refused, saying there was no precedent for that. Willis strongly opposed the removal request, saying their arguments were baseless and meritless. The judge has scheduled a hearing for Monday. Meanwhile, Jordan gave Willis until 10 a.m. on September 7 to reply. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
Great to hear from you. As we mentioned, the House Judiciary Committee is looking into DA's motivations here for prosecuting Trump. So what are they looking for?
Well, they're looking for what coordination that maybe Fani Willis had with Jack Smith, who's the special counsel. I mean, it's clear, as we saw in your piece here, that this whole thing is politically motivated. Keep in mind that Jim Jordan also sent a similar letter to Alvin Bragg, the New York City prosecutor there, who has an indictment against Trump as well. This was on the so-called hush money payments. So there's clearly a legislative purpose here that Jim Jordan's trying to uncover, to see what coordination is. And when Fani Willis was asked the other day, has she been talking to Jack Smith? She ducked the question. So it's clear that there is something going on here, and it's politically motivated, as all these indictments are against President Trump.
Is this a type of case that should be tried at the district level?
Well, there are a couple of motions to have this transferred to the federal court. There's a federal law 28 U.S.C. 1422 that says if a federal official is indicted in state court, they can have it transferred to the federal court, where you have a better jury pool and where you have a federal judge who can adjudicate some of these constitutional issues in a more appropriate manner. And there is going to be a hearing on Monday about this, so it's going to be interesting whether the federal court takes this over, or whether we're going to see the spectacle of two trials, one in the federal court and one in the state court.
Very interesting. Let's talk about that trial date. October is just 2 months from now, and the judge has granted Willis's request to have the trial on that date for one defendant who asked for a speedy trial, and this is a date that Trump has opposed. Do you think this is reasonable for all 19 defendants?
No, it's not reasonable, but Ken Chesebro, the attorney who was indicted, has a right under the Speedy Trial Act to call Fani Willis's bluff and say, hey, I'm entitled to a speedy trial. Let's get it on. And so he has a right to have that. And in that case, what may happen is there might be a separation of Ken Chesebro's trial from the other defendants. I think that there's a lot of preparation that needs to be done. I don't see this case being tried even in March of next year before Super Tuesday and the other elections. So it remains to be seen here. We'll be having some hearings in the next week or two that will decide when these trial dates will take place.
And Paul, Trump suggests that his actions stem from his right to free speech. Let's watch this clip of Trump on the tarmac in Georgia after he being booked.
If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others.
So Hillary Clinton had questioned legitimacy of the outcome of her 2016 contest with Trump, alleging Russian interference and GOP voter suppression. Is that what Trump's referring to? And was there any differences here, considering that Trump's team actually did arrange alternate electors?
Not much difference at all. Both Hillary Clinton and Stacey Abrams, when she ran for governor, she said that her election was rigged and it's illegitimate. So they're making the same arguments. It's just that Trump also took a step further and petitioned state officials to take a look at this. This is a violation of his First Amendment rights to petition your government for redress of grievances. The government can deny your petition, but they cannot criminalize it as they are doing here. And to have an alternate slate of electors, there's precedent for that in Hawaii in 1960 with the presidential race between Nixon and John F. Kennedy. Nixon originally won. John F. Kennedy had an alternate slate of electors because they did a recount and found out that he won. And so they had a contingency. So John F. Kennedy got those 3 electors from Hawaii. So there is precedent for this kind of getting an alternate slate of electors. They're not fake electors. They're just an alternate slate of electors.
So by that logic, it seems that Trump is paying the price for simply being prepared. Now, why do you think Trump swapped lawyers in the Georgia case?
Well, he's been doing assembling his legal team over the last 6 months or so with various cases. I think perhaps this attorney that he has now is probably more of an expert in Georgia law. He's a fighter. I mean, this is nothing new here where there might be different strategies and Trump may be more comfortable with one or the other. But all of his attorneys have been excellent attorneys, and I know a few of them as well.
Well, thank you so much for that analysis. Paul Kamenar, the lead counsel.
House those who come into the state legally or illegally who are in need of housing, we're required to put them up. So at this point, we are, as a state, have commandeered about 25, and the number grows every day, but we've commandeered about 25 hotels throughout the state in which we are now housing a lot of the illegal immigrants who have come across the border.
And do you sense that constituents, first in your region, are now in favor of supporting this financially?
You know, it is a mixed review that we're seeing. For the most part, people are very frustrated because one of the things that's been happening here, of course, is that we have our own homeless problem here in Massachusetts. We have a very famous road in Boston, Mass and Cass, in which we have homeless tents just set up, but yet these people are not getting the shelter that they require.
And why is that? Do they have a desire to seek that out?
You know, I think there's some kind of ambiguity there, because I think it's hard to get some people off the streets who don't want to go off the streets. You know, maybe they have substance abuse, mental health issues, and the likes that we're seeing. So sometimes it's hard to get them off the streets and get them the help they need. But for those that do, they're being shut out of the process, and it's been a long time for them.
So in light of this, retired Massachusetts State Trooper Darrell Haywood said that if Governor Healey does provide humanitarian support, if that's her priority to these migrant families, then why aren't they taking care of their own? So what are your thoughts here?
Well, right. It's really hypocritical to say that we need to help those who are homeless and yet only help those who are coming into the state as part of this migrant border crossing. So that's all we can see right now. And even, you know, at this point, our governor is saying, well, we should, if you have rooms in your house, you should start housing families and housing these migrants. Yet this Mass and Cass tent city has been there for years. So no help has been given. So it's really kind of something you scratch your head about.
And housing migrants in private citizens' homes, where would that end?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know, to be quite honest with you. I don't know how many people in the administration hasn't divulged how many people have given up their homes or have given up rooms in their homes. So we don't know where that ends, and we don't even know what the end game is here. I think we've seen that the Healey administration has tried to move a little bit further and push for work permits and try to push to assimilate. And so now we've gone from a migrant crisis to just this immigration crisis where we want to assimilate them in. And
do you think that those work permits are a viable solution?
You know, honestly, I think it's a mixed bag here, because in Massachusetts, like a lot of the country, there are a lot of job openings and a lot of the entry position openings. So one could make the argument that, in fact, there is a need for them, but we need to make sure we're taking care of our own citizens first.
Massachusetts State Representative Peter Durant, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I think it's a disorganized crime, and I don't think these folks are willing to testify against the former president of the United States.
Cornell professor William Jacobson doesn't believe the RICO charge is warranted, but if it were, he says it should have been brought a year ago. He called the charges complete political interference.
We should have been through this process. We should not have a major political candidate, the leading candidate so far in the Republican Party, being arraigned on the eve of the primary season.
Political journalist Angie Wong says the case is a name, shame, and smear campaign by the district attorney.
They're trying to round up all of Trump's troops so that they can no longer investigate what was happening in Georgia in 2020 and for the 2020 election.
While Trump attorney Jesse Banal says it's a very dangerous time for the country.
Because you see this politicalization of the justice system like we've never seen before in America.
Chief Investigative Counsel to the January 6th committee, Timothy Hafey, says it's troubling that the U.S. has gotten to a point where a former president has a mugshot, but he believes in the process.
It's justice, it's the right thing, it's what happens when people violate the law and are held accountable.
Hafey says Fani Willis has laid out a similar case that Special Counsel Jack Smith has presented.
A multi-part intentional plan to disrupt the joint session and prevent the transfer of powers.
Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
People to question an election. We are able to audit. We are able to live freely. And the Democrats have done that as well.
Our government, literally right before everyone's face, weaponized the justice system. And the only thing that works, this is crazy. It's sad, and I never thought I would see it in my life.
This is great. This
Why?
is awesome. Because it shows that even if you have all this money and all the power, and you're the most powerful person in the United States, you are not above the law, and you are not above consequences. It's great.
I happened to be here, and then I thought about what was happening tonight. I could not come by to support my President Trump. That man brought our economy up. He got us out of wars.
Because this country is too important to lose. We have to have Donald Trump. It's Trump or death.
Continuing with former President Donald Trump, NTD's Daniel Monahan has reactions to and analysis of the indictment.
And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far